Stress and anxiety is something that we all deal with, especially me. I know I get anxiety all the time. And a little bit of stress and a little bit of anxiety is good for you. But what happens when anxiety begins to take over your life and you find it hard to continue to function? Well, tonight I am joined by my good friend and the beautiful therapist, Ashley Chirayil. Oh, I can't see y'all. Ashley is a licensed social worker practicing in the state of Texas. She graduated from the University of Texas at Arlington with a master's degree specializing in mental health and substance abuse. She works in a variety of professional settings, including inpatient care, acute care settings, outpatient care, case management, and has focused on group therapy and individual counseling. Ashley has a certification and provides full-time psychotherapy services. She has a passion for working with young adults and adults from diverse backgrounds and supporting them through recent life changes, relationship issues, chronic mental diseases, and identity issues. She enjoys allowing her clients to the space to address issues they feel may be hindering their personal growth so they can become an empowered version of themselves. And she prioritizes overcoming any obstacles and ensuring they succeed in their journey towards wellness. I would like to introduce you all to Ashley. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us tonight, darling.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
That light was blinding me, girl, and and I got these eyes, and I don't have my glasses on. My team was talking about me with my not wearing my glasses, so I couldn't see.
We're
so
about that LASIK life. It's okay.
Yes,
we can see it. We
yes.
can see it. Right.
They hating on us. Ashley, how are you this evening?
I am good. How about you?
I'm good. So before we get started, I want you to tell our audience just a little bit about yourself. I know I gave a brief intro, but tell our audience just a little bit about yourself, about your practice, kind of what you do, and the type of people that you work with on a daily basis.
Okay. Well, I've been doing private practice. I started my own independent practice the beginning of this year, but I've been doing individual therapy for the past couple of years now. I mostly work with young adults. I do work with kids as well, just kind of depending on how we click whenever we talk and do initial evaluations. I usually see them during the weekday, whatever time works for them, and we kind of go through topics like related to what we're going to talk about today. We talk about anxiety, we talk about depression, we talk about life adjustments, we talk about if there's relationship issues, with family, if it's with your partner, if it's with people that you work with at the job. We just kind of focus on whatever the individual's goals are with therapy, and we just kind of target that in each session. And I like to keep it an open space so that, like, should something else come up aside from what our goals are, they have the opportunity to have an outlet, because sometimes people don't have that.
Now that is very much so true, which is one of the reasons why we created NexLevel and this couch, so that we could have an outlet to talk. The name of your practice, tell me about Seeds of Healing, Health, and Wellness.
Okay, so we call it Seeds of Healing because I feel like my role here as a therapist is kind of to plant the seed in people's mind.
Okay.
So it's, and like, if you know anything about gardening, I grew up seeing my dad garden all the time, and I understand gardening is a process, and it's contingent on a lot of things. But the first step is always making sure you got good soil, plant that seed in and give it the proper light, give it water, give it attention, and be sure to protect it when it comes to like inclement weather, things of that nature. Sometimes people don't know the best way to take care of like a plant, or in this case, all the things, the flowers, the plants, whatever it is that grows in our mind. Sometimes we have worries, sometimes we have things that come up where we're just like, oh, I don't know what to do with that. And so sometimes it helps if you have someone else there giving you a perspective, giving you advice. There have been so many literal plants in my life that I've killed. So, there are a few plants that I could keep with me where it's like they've stayed strong with me for the past couple of years, and it's been a journey. So I feel like for me as a therapist, that's kind of my role with people, where it's like we plant those seeds and we teach them how to maintain it, so that even outside of therapy, you don't need to see me for 25 years unless you want to. You know what I mean? I want it to be something where it's like by the time you're done with services, you know how to take care of you and how to continue to nurture your mental garden.
I love that. I love that. So let's kind of get into it, and because you work, as you said, you work with a lot of people with a lot of anxiety disorders and different things like that. And we're going to talk about CBT and explain all of that. But I want to start with the basics. Tell me a little bit about what anxiety is.
So anxiety is an excessive worry in relation to topics, events, people, anything really on the day to day. It's a worry that is beyond the average. And so it's like, I like to see it as, it's kind of like a fear of something, a fear of the future.
Oh,
Is
okay.
what I see it as.
Okay. I like that. You know what? I like that. I kind of associated anxiety. I like that. I do. I like that. Let me ask you this question: are anxiety attacks and panic attacks the same thing?
They are not.
They are not.
They're very different.
So what's the difference?
So an anxiety attack, which is typically associated with an anxiety disorder, is something that you know where it's coming from. It is triggered by a specific thing. It could be a certain place, it could be a person, it could be a season in the year where you have more anxiety, where you've noticed like a peak in that type of mood, and it's a gradual buildup when you have an anxiety attack, where it's like you notice it, you notice yourself getting a little nervous, you notice a little sweating, maybe a pit in your stomach, you notice yourself heating up a little bit. A panic attack is something where there is no cause. It just kind of comes boom, 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 and it comes from 0 to 100 really quick.
Oh.
You don't really have a chance to prepare as much when it comes to a panic attack, and those are typically only diagnosed as a panic attack when you have an official panic disorder. An anxiety disorder has different criteria. That's a little bit less severe.
Okay, and as you just said, and you can prepare for an anxiety attack, which is, you're going to be giving us some tools on tonight on how to prepare for anxiety attacks and how to overcome anxiety attacks.
Yes.
But talk to me about different type of anxiety disorders.
Okay. So one of the most popular ones that you see people diagnosed with is generalized anxiety disorder. And generalized anxiety disorder is basically when like anything in general, anything that comes at you on the day-to-day kind of makes you anxious and puts you on edge a little bit.
But isn't that normal? Like, how do you know, that's normal.
Mm-hmm. But the difference is, like, when you have an anxiety disorder, sometimes there isn't a reason, versus when you have just day-to-day anxiety. Like, say it's something where it's like you have a big presentation or you got a podcast that you want to talk in, you know what I mean? And you're just like, ooh, I don't know how this is gonna go. I hope people hear what they need to hear. That's like a situational anxiety, where it's like in this moment, you're kind of nervous, you're hoping everything goes well. A generalized anxiety would be if, when I leave this podcast, I'm nervous about walking down those stairs to my car. I'm nervous about if my car is gonna start. I'm nervous about if I'm going to make it back home, or I'm just going to randomly be put on E and be abandoned somewhere. You know what I mean? Where it keeps building, and it doesn't take anything specific for it to pop up.
Wow. So that's the only kind, or are there more severe?
No, there's more. So panic disorder is probably the most severe because it's the most erratic, the most like unpredictable, and oftentimes people do see psychiatrists alongside their therapists for med management with panic disorders, just to kind of get it to like a healthy, stabilized baseline before they can kind of change up meds and things of that nature. There's also anxiety disorders that are related to substances. If you drink a lot, if you use weed, if you use any other substances, it could be a substance-induced anxiety. There is also selective mutism. You see that a lot in kids, where sometimes when they go to certain...
The X-Men.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I don't know if that works. We'll roll with that. So it's like, with selective mutism, it's like you'll see it in kids where it's like if they're around certain people, or maybe they go to school, or if they go to some sort of like after school club or whatever, they're really quiet. They're in a corner. They don't talk to anybody. They don't want to talk to their teachers. They can only talk to mom and dad or somebody like that.
That's anxiety.
No, that is selective mutism.
Selective mutism.
Yes. So you mostly see it in kids. Sometimes you could see it in adults too. Like, say you went through something super traumatic, and then you have selective mutism when you're around certain type of people that caused trauma or induced a traumatic experience that threw you off guard.
Okay, so me, I used to didn't do hugs, and sometimes I have to brace myself for when people touch me. Is that considered, like, do I have anxiety or okay?
But it's like a situational anxiety where it's like specific to hugs. You're nervous with that type of stuff.
Okay.
It's not like if someone was to like shake your hand or give you a fist bump. Do you have that same type of nervousness, or is it just with the hug?
It's touch. I don't know, do people just touching me?
Well, maybe it's
outside of, I have to be prepared for the touch.
Yeah.
Or,
And I mean, that's like a situational thing too. I wouldn't necessarily say, because like with anxiety, you can kind of rate it in relation to mild, moderate, severe.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah, and so like with anxiety too, like for you, it wouldn't be like a single episode where it just happens like a one-off situation, like me at a podcast. You know what I mean? That's like a single episode nervousness or whatever. But if you have it to where it's like a recurrent situation, anytime you go to talk to someone, if they're trying to give you some sort of physical touch, you have that same type of response in your body.
Let me ask you this. And you know, listening to you talk, but I just want to clarify, just for people who are listening and they're learning this and they're trying to see where they fall and what's going on with them in their own life. Is anxiety and depression, are they the same thing?
No, they're not. So they're very different diagnoses, but sometimes if anxiety is not managed, it can lead to an onset of a depressive episode.
Okay. So what, can you talk briefly, and I know this is just an out of the blue question for you, can you talk briefly about what depression is and how that manifests itself differently from anxiety?
So depression is more in relation to low moods. You have a lack of motivation. You don't have, like when your activities of daily living, like your ADLs, you don't even have the energy to do that. And that would be something like getting up, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, doing your hair, eating breakfast, taking out your trash, doing laundry, stuff like that. Like you just don't have the energy because you're filled with so much grief and sadness.
But can anxiety lead to depression? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So anxiety, if it's left untreated and if you're not managing your triggers or the things that are bothering you that are invoking those feelings of anxiety, it can lead to depression because you're like, ooh, I've been struggling with this for so long and it's bothering me so much, this anxiety. I just feel unmotivated. I feel low. I feel like I can't do anything about this and I'm just going to be stuck in my room and I don't have anyone else to talk to. I don't have an outlet or support.
Okay.
It's rough.
Okay, so, and I said I wasn't going to tell none of my business, okay?
Let's hear it. It's
Somehow
okay.
or another, I always manage giving all my business on this show. But, so, I want to use me as an example, and I want to use this particular instance as an example because I did not, for a long time, I didn't suffer from anxiety. I didn't have anxiety attacks. And then in 2016, my whole life changed, and, well, I wouldn't have associated those with anxiety attacks. They were anxiety attacks. I didn't like to be touched, so that's probably an anxiety. I kind of move if somebody touched me.
Yeah.
So that's a form of anxiety. But the first time I actually had a real, what I recognize as a anxiety attack, Lord have mercy, give all my business. It was the first time I kissed somebody after my divorce.
Okay.
After my divorce. And it was just, I mean, that kiss, it sent me into a whole, I mean, it was just crazy. I felt weak at that moment. I felt like, I really was. I was really hard on myself. Just confirm with me, and just because you have anxiety attacks, that is not a sign of weakness. Would you or would you not agree with me? Anxiety is really normal.
Yeah. And the thing is, we're only human. You know, we were given all these emotions when we came into this earth. We got to figure out how to deal with it until it's our time to go. And so for you, like in that situation, you had experienced a really big life change for you, a separation, you know what I mean? That's a whole dynamic that you were used to for a certain amount of time. Now it's gone. You're transitioning into something different, but it's easy to still hold on to certain things that have happened until you have a chance to properly heal it. You know what I mean?
Okay. So managing anxiety and even that can feel overwhelming. Let's kind of move along and talk about some things that people can do. Before we do that, hold that thought, because I just had another thought.
All right.
One of the pillars here at NexLevel is awareness. How would a person who's watching this show and they're thinking about their own life and they're trying to figure out where they are and fix some of the problems, how would they go about becoming aware that they suffer from anxiety or that they are in the middle of an anxiety attack? Can you give us some behaviors or some things that happen in the midst of an anxiety attack so that they can be able to say, okay, I'm having an anxiety attack. I'm not losing my mind. I'm having an anxiety attack.
So one of the things I like to have people do to kind of assess their experience with anxiety attacks, because sometimes it varies between person to person, is to do like a body scan, you know. And so the way that our mind and body is connected, our body usually tells us we have an anxiety attack before it comes all the way up to our head. And so our body kind of gives us cues. So for me, like when I get really anxious or nervous about something, the first place in my body that I feel it the most is the pit of my stomach. I get those butterflies. I got a lot of things going on in my stomach that lets me know, ooh, like I'm alarmed, something's going off. You know what I mean? I also notice, like for me, it's like I get heat in my ears. Like I feel really hot. You know, and so for me, that's what it is. But for other people, they say they feel lightheaded. They feel like their heart is racing. You know what I mean? They feel like they're sweating, and they feel like, you know, their mind is racing. A lot of thoughts are going on at once, and they can't really control it. So like things like that, where it's like it's different from your usual baseline of how you are in your day-to-day. When you've noticed that things are elevated, that kind of shows you like, ooh, let me be in tune with myself real quick. What's going on? What's bothering me here? And how can I kind of go through that? With general anxiety and kind of figuring out if you have an anxiety disorder, like common symptoms of it that people don't acknowledge as parts of anxiety is if you have a lack of self-esteem, if you have feelings of hopelessness or feelings of like, oh, I'm inadequate in any type of way.
Really?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Really? I didn't know that.
That's why it affects women so much too, because we're constantly presented with so many different versions of like what we're supposed to look like, how we're supposed to be, how we should be as an individual in relationships and families, in a career setting and stuff. And so for us, like we have a lot of pressure put on ourselves, men too. But you know, for us, it's like there's a lot more things that we got to consider.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, the feelings of self-esteem, sometimes it's like one of the bigger things about anxiety is if you have a thing with procrastination. When you avoid doing things and you're just like, oh, I know I should be doing this. I know I should be going to the grocery store, but let's not do that right now. I know I should be submitting this paperwork, but it could wait.
That's a symptom of anxiety?
Yeah, because
Really?
anxiety, when you get nervous enough about something, you avoid it as much as possible.
Really? I may be suffering from a little bit of anxiety in a couple of areas.
Just a little bit. It's okay. We all do.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. I did not know that. So what are some ways, and we're going to talk about CBT, because tell me exactly what CBT is.
It's cognitive behavioral therapy.
Okay.
Oh, you want, okay.
Yeah,
So it's a therapeutic intervention that basically connects your mind, your thoughts, your impulses, your beliefs into how it affects your body.
And so do you use that to help people overcome anxiety? I mean, like, how does that help us, like me with procrastination? How do you use that so that I can get past it and get on in there?
So like whenever you figure out what's going on in you mentally when it comes to anxiety, that's when we as therapists can kind of transition into, okay, so we see the root cause of this, we see why it's happening, we see how often it's happening. Now we need to transition into your body, so your behavior. We transition into kind of like a behavioral modification. So it's kind of like the things that you're doing in your day-to-day right now, how can we tweak that? How can we make that something that's a little bit healthier, more sustainable, more consistent for you so that you're less anxious about the unpredictables of life.
So how do you, you have a client that comes in, let's say Shantae comes on into your office and I'm going to, do I lay down on the couch?
If you want to, you can. Sprawl all the way out. I sit on the floor, I'll talk to you.
I lay out on the floor.
Yeah.
Ashley, I am feeling anxious. It feels like I'm stuck and I continue to worry. And I have all of these fears. This is not panic, but I have these fears and I have these feelings about myself as if I'm not living up to what the vision of myself that I have for myself. Walk me through what you would do with me and how that session would look and where we would go from there.
So one of the big things I would ask is, if you could envision yourself living in an ideal situation where everything is going your way, where everything is perfect, what would that look like for you?
That would look like, I better keep all of those thoughts. I'm gonna keep those thoughts to myself.
All right, you need to.
Okay, so that's my first question. I'm not gonna tell everybody what that would look like.
So once we figure out what that ideal vision is, what makes you feel like you're not already in track to get there?
I feel like a lot of things, I feel like there is where I want to go. And there are a number of resistant factors sitting right here that are constantly bumping up against me that's keeping me from going to where I want to go.
Okay. How many of those things, those resistant factors, are things that are in your control?
Probably about a half.
Okay. Of those things that are outside of your control, is it feasible to let go of it, knowing that there's still work that you could do for yourself to see a little bit of a shift towards your goal?
Of the things that are outside of my control, is it feasible to let go of those things to see if I.
So we could focus on the things you can't control for a little bit.
For some of them, it's not, because they impact. They're outside of my control, but they impact me so much. But there's nothing that I can do about them except for receive them and handle them. But they cause anxiety, and I feel like they block me from doing things.
And so that's like one of those things where it's like you're given all these things that aren't in your control power over you. And for you, like when we were first talking, we were talking about how we're both warriors. And so one of the main metaphors I like to give people in therapy is the one about people who have phones. Okay, so there's two different types of people. There's those people where you go to sleep, you put your phone in the charger, and then you charge it for the whole night, right? And then you go wake up and it's 100%. And then, you know, you go to work, have your full 8 hours, however much you do, and then by the end of the workday, you're looking at your phone and you see maybe you're at like 50% charge. So there's two types of people. There's going to be that person that's like, oh, I still got 50% charge left. I'm good to go. This will last me till I get home through the day. Not a big deal. And then there's going to be that second person where it's like, ooh, I'm 50% charged and I got that drive home. Plus I got traffic. Let me go ahead and plug this into the charger in my car. So that by the time I get home, I got at least 75 to 80% to do the rest of what I need to do. And then the people who decide not to charge the phone in their car, by the time they get back home and they do whatever it is they need to do, and they have to plug it in again before they go to bed, they're already at low power, low battery saving mode, 20%. You can't see your phone screen. You can't set an alarm, nothing until you plug that in.
Well, I'm the second one.
I know you are.
You say that like that's not good. I'm the second one every day of the week.
I'm the first one. I'm like, can I charge it now? Let me go ahead and do that.
No, the person who charges it now that was number two. The person who's on 50%, you just leave them where they are.
So you don't think you're the 50%? You charge it when you get the opportunity.
I'm gonna charge it the moment I get the opportunity, because I need, if I'm fixing to sit in traffic and everything else, I need a charge.
And so like when you were talking about before, you were talking about the things that are in your control and the things that are outside of your control that are affecting you in your day to day. When you sit on the things that are outside of your control for longer than is needed, that's one of those things that are stealing juice from your phone when it doesn't need to be.
Okay.
Because, you know, sometimes, like, you know, if you're on YouTube and stuff, they got those ads. It takes the charge and everything like that, but it's just a quick thing. You could get to the stuff you need.
Okay.
So in that same way, it's all about conservation. Definitely acknowledge the fact that there are things that are out of your control. Being in denial about that type of stuff is not going to help you either, but you can't let those things be limiting beliefs. Okay. Where it's like, I can only get this far because the rest of it isn't up to me.
Okay. So, and that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because, you know, a lot of people don't really associate or feel comfortable with therapy and stuff like that. But tell me how talking about the things that are going on inside of you will help you deal with your anxiety. How does that help people?
So, and I say this from personal experience. I've had so many moments in my life where I was just like, "Oh, let me bottle this up. Let me bottle it up. It's all good. It's not big enough yet. Let me wait. That is the thing. It's not big all the way there at the cup." But then instead of it just being like a quick little thing, like a shake or something that I got to process, it becomes a whole bomb by the time it comes out. And when it becomes a bomb and it pops, that's when it translates into other aspects of my life. And it makes it so that it's a lot less manageable versus when I'm aware of it and I see it, and regardless of how small it is, I can keep it contained.
So That's good because I did want to ask you, as a social worker and therapist, how do you yourself, do you suffer from anxiety, and where's your spectrum, and how do you deal with your anxiety?
I think it's one of those things where it's like, I think growing up, anxiety was something that I definitely struggled with just because it wasn't something that, culturally you talk about so much either. It was very much so an unknown thing until I got into college and I got into this program. And I'm like, oh, this is something that a lot of people deal with. This is something that, we all kind of have to go through. And it's one of those things where it's like, even though for me, I don't necessarily find it a chronic thing, it is definitely something that comes up in situational instances. But the only reason it's not as escalated as it needs to be is because I'm so focused on maintaining the consistencies that I can in my day-to-day routine.
So as a social working therapist, tell me, what does your day-to-day routine looks like to keep your anxiety on a balanced scale? Because I'm gonna tell you one of the things that I do, and I want to really highlight some particular things that people can do who suffer from anxiety. One of the things that I do, and I know you do because we do it together, is I work out to help relieve a lot of my anxiety, a lot of my stress, because I live a very high stress life. And so if I don't balance my life, I will overeat. I will self pleasure. I will hit the streets and do some things I ain't got no business doing. I will drink. So I work out and I read and different things like that to help with that anxiety. But sometimes, there's things that are going on that's causing anxiety that just don't work good for me. So what are some of the things that you do to on a daily basis to maintain your anxiety?
So one of the main things that I like to focus on even before the day starts is the night before. I focus on sleep hygiene. If I'm not rested, if I'm not situated with the amount of hours that I need, anything can go down that day. Nobody is safe. So for me, I value that a lot. So it's by the time I'm done with my work day, I fix whatever errands I need to do. I make whatever I need to make to eat. I might start just with a bath, depending on that evening. I'm gonna have a bath. I'll put whatever it is I like to put in there, like scents, or it could be like magnesium, like the little, what is it, the salts and stuff like that, whatever you like, so that there's like relaxing scents. I might put like some essential oils in there, so I'm relaxing at that time too. I might have some juice that I juiced and have that moment just for me to decompress.
To separate from the day. Okay.
I need to have a reset moment every day, just because when you talk to people so much on the day-to-day basis, it's natural for things to weigh heavy on you from time to time.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah. So I start maybe with the bath, and I do whatever I need to do. If there's like a show or something that I'm looking forward to watching that evening, I'm gonna do that. And like for me, when it comes to sleep, sometimes I like to have an evening tea. Sometimes I like to read. Sometimes if I have lingering thoughts in my mind that I hadn't been able to shake from my morning workout, or like if I'm taking my dogs on a walk or something like that, I like to journal. I like to process through whatever it is, just so it could be out there. Sometimes if it gets so bad, that's when I would lean on my support system. I might want to talk to them about something, just get it out of my system, let them get whatever they need out of their system, just so that by the time my head hits those sheets, I'm not thinking about anything else except getting these hours, so that I can do the next day.
Okay. So part of your maintaining balance and keeping your anxiety and emotions intact is you start with the night before and making sure that you have decompressed your day by doing all of those different types of things. So then what are some of the things that you do throughout the day that help you work off or keep yourself balanced?
So I'll start the morning with a workout. Do whatever that is, process whatever I need to process that day, get mad about the exercises I'm doing, whatever. Come back home, shower, depending on whenever the next client is. I might try to knock things out during the day, so that if I know I'm gonna have a busy day, like if I know when I talk to certain people they're gonna require a little bit more time and stuff like that, I might knock things out during the day so that in the evening I don't have to be rushed into anything.
So what you're saying is you are intentional about managing your time. and balancing your time throughout the day in addition to. And you do this every day. So you've also implemented consistency.
I need consistency. If there, because there's already, like we talked about before, there's already so many random things that might pop up that'll be like, oh, well, now I got to go do this. Like, say my mom is like, oh, we need to go to Costco, and she wants to buy those heavy things, but no one else wants to go with her. Guess we got to go to Costco this day. So I'm not going to be able to do this thing, but I was able to knock out the core things, so it doesn't bother me if I have that little inflexibility or that adjustment to make.
Okay. So, okay. I like that.
Versus if
like
I didn't
that.
hit anything, if I was just avoiding doing everything, if I didn't go to the gym, I didn't focus on making my food in advance or nothing like that, and then all I did was see patients, then by the end of the day, I'm gonna be like, ugh, like.
Does that cause you anxiety? Like when you, and sometimes I have to catch myself with this because I have such a regimen and I like my routine. My routine keeps me balanced. But I find when I'm off my routine, I have more anxiety. And so I have to then work on calming that anxiety because I feel like I've failed in some days. I feel like I've failed in the day.
Yeah.
And I don't like not reaching my goals. Does that, do you ever feel that way?
Yeah, just because like for me, I like when I get a lot of things done, I have like that gratification that's like, oh, I did
like,
something.
oh,
I did
I'm so
a lot
proud
today.
of you, girl.
Yeah, and my goal always is like I can get as much as I can done during the week so that in the weekends I could do something more spontaneous, something that's like unplanned or something where it's like, oh, I might want to do this. Just give myself the opportunity to explore new things. Like I gotta give myself a little bit of variety because even though there's so much consistency in my schedule, sometimes you need something random to pop up so that you can kind of have like that refresh, that recharge. That's different from just plugging the phone into the wall. You know what I mean? Like I like to plan little trips. I might want to go into the farmer's market one weekend. I might want to dedicate a weekend just to painting. Like I love painting. I feel like that's one of the greatest expressions of emotion where you don't really need to speak. You can put all you need to feel on a canvas.
Okay. I like all of those. I really do. I like all of those different things that you have talked about to help to help calm anxiety and create some balance in your life. Let me ask you this, because a lot of people suffer from anxiety and they are not on medication. How do you determine, or how would a person know that I'm at a point where just doing general techniques is not enough for me? I need to probably medicate or do something more. Like what's the baseline, or what are the things that they should be looking for to say, okay, this is not too much. I need to do something, because if I don't, I'm gonna have a heart attack or something to that effect. Because I don't want people to get to the point of burnout. I don't want them to get to the point of sickness, because anxiety can lead to sickness. We haven't even talked about that, but anxiety can lead to sickness, all sorts of sicknesses and stuff. How does a person figure out, I'm at a point where just doing these general things, or I've been doing these things and they're not working, and maybe it's time for me to get put on some medication?
I think it's some of the signs is like when you don't adjust well to smaller things. Like if you can't maintain an open mind about stuff, like say you put like certain restrictions on yourself that really don't need to be there. Like if you tell yourself, oh, well, I can't go out this late because I have to go do this, and this for my kids, or I can't go do this because of this. Like how much of that is really something that you can't be flexible about? How much of it is stuff that you're placing as a limitation for yourself instead of allowing it to fully manifest and see if in reality, is this something that's plausible for me to do, or is this actually something where it's like I need to take a couple steps back, I might need to wait on this?
One of the things that I am consistently hearing you say and I'm observing is, in order to really be able to handle anxiety and overcome anxiety, it requires a lot of self-talk, self-communication. Like you are literally having a conversation with yourself and questioning yourself. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? And stuff like that. That's really what I seem to hear you say often.
Yeah, because I feel like if you don't know you, you can't help anything around you. if you don't know what your triggers are, if you don't know who bothers you, if you don't know what type of events bother you, if you don't know what your interests are, what you definitely dislike, it's going to be one of those things where like your life just kind of becomes a loop and you're just going through the motions and you don't have even the opportunity to be like, well, let me shuffle this deck and try to get a new hand. You know, it's just one of those things where it's like, I'm stuck here and I don't know how to get out. It's like those hamsters that are in those little wheels and you just keep running and running, but you're too scared to be like, oh, let me stop right now.
So somebody who's watching right now, and we're about to turn it over to our audience so that they can ask you some questions. But someone who's watching right now who has realized I'm the hamster on the wheel. What's my first step? What do I need to do right now? What do they need to do right now?
And part of that too, it kind of depends on your comfort level. If the first step is, I would say like the first step for me that I would do in certain situations would be reaching out to my support system. Check in with them and be like, am I handling this okay? Is this a rational thing that I'm thinking of right now? Like, does this make sense to you? And more often than not, like if those are core people that like trust you and they understand you and they know you all the way, they'll be able to check you immediately.
Okay.
And they'll be able to let you know like, hey, maybe we need to think about this a little bit more. Say you don't have a support system. The next best thing is a therapist.
Okay.
Just because like that's a neutral party where whatever you say to them, they can tell you without any sort of bias. You have full control over that session, what you discuss, and the feedback that you get from them is just going to be something that's completely about what you're dealing with right now and what you hope to be.
Okay.
It's not going to be something where it's like someone who's known you for 20 years, like say you talk to them about something and then they bring up something that happened in the
back when.
Yeah, and they don't let you move forward. You know what I mean? The therapist doesn't have that.
Okay. So basically what you're saying is to the person who right now, today, is feeling as if their life is spiraling, they need a plan. First step, reach out to your support system. Reach out for help. That's your, find your support system, connect with your support system. If you don't have a support system, connect with the therapist.
And I think even before both of those things can happen is acknowledging that I'm not doing too good right now.
Yeah, that's the first one.
Yeah.
Just we got to acknowledge where we are. All right. Ashley, thank you so much. We are going to turn it over to our audience after this brief message.
My name is LaDonna. I'm Imani. I'm Lauren Fisher. And I'm Robbie Litt. My name is Tatiana.
I'm Josh.
I'm Saraysha. Zoe. And I'm Sterling. And I'm Eden. My name is Deja.
Nicole. My name is Ashley.
LaDonna.
I'm Patrice and this is Bryce. And we're joining NexLevel in the fight against breast cancer.
I'm joining NexLevel in the fight against breast cancer.
And we're joining NexLevel in the fight against breast cancer.
And I'm joining NexLevel in the fight against breast cancer.
And we're joining NexLevel in the fight against breast cancer.
And we're joining NexLevel in the fight against breast cancer.
We are back and we are talking about overcoming anxiety with the fabulous Miss Ashley Chirayil. So Ashley has been sharing with us some different techniques and things that we can use to help us overcome our anxiety and move forward, as well as some techniques and things to do to maintain a balanced life. At this time, Ashley, what I like to do is I like to open up the show to our audience so that they can ask you personal questions that they may have as we've been talking here.
Okay.
So let's get started.
Okay.
Oh, okay. One of the first questions is, what is the relationship between ruminating on a past event and anxiety? And are those connected, or are those two different mental health struggles?
So I guess the first thing that we would need to unpack is the past event hindering you from your present?
Okay.
When you think about it, is that something that's keeping you from performing to your max potential? Is it something that, like, whenever you are going through your day-to-day, say you're at your job, say you're with your family, whatever it may be, is it something where that keeps pulling you back and it makes you feel like, oh, this is where I stop. I can't go past this. If so, then yeah, that can be something that is triggering your anxiety, and it can trigger certain anxious thoughts and the symptoms that we kind of talked about.
So how do you suggest people slow down anxious thoughts?
So one of the best ways to go about those thoughts is kind of understanding where they're coming from. So whenever you journal, it's important to focus on who, what, when, where, why.
Okay.
Whenever you have those anxious thoughts or those anxious, if you have an anxiety attack, track it and journal it on a regular basis first and see, is there a pattern? Because more often than not, when our body sends us these signals, there is a pattern because it wants us to acknowledge, hey, there's something that we need to look into.
So we need to be able to, what I call, notice and name them. And so one of the techniques that you're telling us to use to help us move forward and overcome anxiety is journaling. Make a note of when you're having these attacks and when, what,
Who, what, when, where, why.
who, what, when, where, why.
And sometimes it's going to be a NA. Sometimes maybe there isn't somebody. It's going to be a specific place. It's going to be a certain time frame. Like say you experienced a loss or a big change at a certain time one year. Maybe you think back on it like how this person was saying, whereas like that specific, it still pulls at you. It just means it wasn't something that was fully processed. You haven't given yourself a chance to fully heal from it yet and see it as like, that was then, this is me now.
Okay. I like that. How did you know you wanted to do this work?
I think what was helpful was, so like in my family, there's a lot of people that are in the healthcare profession, medically, right? There's like a lot of nurses, there's doctors, there's PAs, pharmacists, all that type of stuff. But I was exposed to that from a very young age. I've been in hospitals, I've seen all the different things that they do. And I was like, I mean, this is cool, but like, you know, you deal with blood, you deal with all this stuff like internally in the body, like in a physical sense that I just wasn't interested in.
Okay.
And I had taken a biology course in college, and I was talking to the lady about like different medical careers at the time, because that was all that I was really exposed to. And she was like, oh, well, if you don't like this biology, you're gonna have to do this one next. You're gonna have to do anatomy and physiology, and anatomy and physiology too, and all that. I was like, ooh, that's not what I'm interested in. And so thankfully, there were other people that I was exposed to that are in the social work setting. I have some family members who are doing it and in different types of environments too, to where it was like I was able to shadow them, kind of talk to them about what it is that they do. And I liked it because I was able to help people make a healthy, sustainable change in their life in this career without having to dig inside of them physically, just mentally.
I like that. Let me ask you this, and I guess we really didn't cover this at the beginning. A social worker and a therapist, are they the same thing?
So if you're just LMSW, typically you are not considered a therapist unless you're supervised under a clinical social worker, which is what I am now. There are people who are LCSWSs, and so they can supervise you for those 2 years while you do see patients in session and kind of practice, so that you could take your test and become a licensed social worker. There are a bunch of different type of therapists in general. So I'm an LCSW, there are LPCs, licensed professional counselors, there are LMFTs, licensed marriage family therapists. So anything you're looking for, there's something. There's psychologists.
Okay.
And they all have different specialties for children, adults.
So you right on up in there.
Yes.
Okay, I got you. What is the mind-body? Okay, hold on. What is the mind-body connection between anxiety and stress? Between anxiety and stress and physical pain?
It can definitely manifest physically. You will notice tensions in your body. If there have been things that have been lingering in the back of your mind, or things that are pulling at you for an extended period of time. And so sometimes things that are helpful with that, I've just started getting into this, is somatic movement. And so it's one of those things where, you know, if you wake up in the morning, you're going to bed, or maybe it's a midday thing, it's kind of a grounding technique where it kind of releases tension in your body. And sometimes it's helpful to do if you got a lot on your mind. So you ground your feet. Ideally, if it's on the floor, like if it's wood and stuff, that's great. But if you could be outside, like in concrete, in grass, touching the earth or whatever it is, and you can ground your feet to it, you just kind of start moving your body. You shake, you move your head, you move your arm, you move your body, you jiggle it. And then whatever body tension that you have, it kind of releases.
Oh, and it's called what?
Somatic movement.
Somatic movement.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
And so sometimes things like that help. Like you'll notice, like, do I feel a release doing this?
Okay.
And there are like therapists that are specialized in just somatic movement.
Because anxiety, I mean, like anxiety, you could have. I'm gonna tell you what I used to suffer from, because I have a high stress job, and so I was always just on pins and needles in the legal profession. If we have a trial or something like that, you're always full of such stress and anxiety that you have missed something. That's something that kind of sits on me all the time. Like, did I miss a deadline? Did I produce this document? Did it? And before I learned how to manage it, I used to have terrible back pains because I would be in that anxiety of, did I do this right? Did I do this right? Did I do this? It was on me so hard. And so I had to learn how to just say, you know what? If I did it, I did it. If I didn't, ain't nobody dead. So but as I began to release that anxiety and release a lot of that stress, the pains that I would have in my lower back began to stop.
Yes.
And so that's one of my indications. Even my toenail has got to the point that when I'm having an anxiety attack, the toe starts
is what
hurting.
tells you
it just
something's
tells,
wrong.
Just tells it on
That's
me.
your trigger right there. Like, hey.
I'm like, you all up in my business.
Yeah.
And so now and it has happened immediately. There's one of the problems with getting a little bit older, but I'm like, wow, that is interesting. But the moment I get stressed or I'm finding myself and stressing over something, my foot gets to hurting. But as long as I'm good and I'm working through whatever my issues are, that foot doesn't bother me. That's just not right. I'm just saying.
Your body's just helping you out. It's okay.
Okay, that's what you say. My roommate has a lot of anxiety, and I do not. Okay. However, I feel like now that I'm living with them, I am starting to develop anxiety.
Ooh.
I feel some of the symptoms you mentioned a lot more now. How do I separate? This is a good question. How do I separate myself from what they are feeling?
So the first thing would be, how comfortable are you with your roommate to let them know, hey, this is a problem? I mean, like immediately, like if it was an ideal world, find yourself another roommate. But in reality, we got leases, we got contracts and stuff like that to where we have to commit to this person for X amount of time, whatever it may be, you know what I mean? And so it's important to create a safe space in your place of living.
Oh, okay. So how does a person do that?
A safe space can be whatever you need it to be. I have clients where like they've had several roommates, especially like people who are in college and stuff like that, or they're in transitionary jobs where maybe they move someplace out of state for a job and then it's a couple people moving there in one spot and they're just trying to save money on rent and everything. I've had people, their safe space is their closet.
Okay.
They have a little nook in their closet. They have a little couch there that they like. They have a light, or they have like some sort of like glow lamp. They have a different type of light in that closet that might make them relax a little bit more. And that's just their safe space that they go to.
Okay.
And then they come back out and they reset.
So thing number one that you would tell them, create a safe space, a safe space in your home where you can go and decompress and come back out.
Yeah.
How would you tell them how to address her roommates, especially if they don't think they have anxiety?
Oh, so the roommate doesn't think they have anxiety.
I'm just saying if they are not people who are as aware as she is, and they're not aware that they live with high anxiety and all of these emotions and stuff all over the place, how would she address them so that, okay, we need to have a conversation about this because, boo, you acting crazy. You can't just say that.
Yeah.
So how would she have that conversation? How would you suggest she have that conversation with them?
I think first you would have to open yourself to the idea that she probably doesn't have a support system that can check her, and maybe her being her roommate is going to have to be that support system.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And it's okay. Sometimes it's temporary, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a full-time thing, especially if you know it's something that affects you. But you can have a conversation comfortable enough to, like, at least if it's not something where you're like, oh, you need to go see a therapist, be like, hey, who do you like to talk to? Who are your go-to people whenever you're sad and stuff? Who do you like to hang out with? Do you have people you like to hang out with? Do you like to do other things alone that you could enjoy by yourself if you don't like to talk to other people, if that makes you nervous? You know, help them kind of realize that they don't just need to sit with this. sometimes people don't realize there is an opportunity to fix something, regardless of how old you are or how deep you're in it. So, you know, for her, it's maybe like her kind of tapping into bringing it to light.
Okay.
And she understands her roommate best. So whatever the way is that she feels like would be the best time to approach that person with that, I think that would be important. Just to be like, hey, how do you feel about how you kind of operate in your day to day?
Okay.
Is this good for you? Like, do you feel like you're thriving right now? You don't feel anxious about anything? Do you feel sad about anything? And then more often than not, sometimes when you just ask those open-ended questions, people will start to open up and they may realize it for the first time then. If you don't have someone to ask you those questions, it's hard to know.
Well, I was going to ask you, what does, building a support system to help you manage your anxiety, what generally does that support system look like or consist of?
So in an ideal situation, sometimes there are those core people. It can be family members, it could be friends, people that you grew up with for a long amount of time. Those are people that you could typically lean on to for support. But you know, sometimes things happen, those people separate and things of that nature. It could literally be someone at your job that's your support system. Say your job is your stressor and you and your coworker, that's what y'all do. That's your go-to person who you can vent to about that problem.
Because really is mine.
Because they understand it. They understand it better than anybody versus like if you wanted to talk to your mom about the job. If she knows nothing about what you do, then she may not be able to help you as much.
Okay.
It's about finding people that could
relate
and in that specific moment.
Okay.
Because everybody, it's like an onion, right? Everybody's got their role. Everybody's got a different layer of being able to connect with you.
Okay, I got that. Okay, so I have one other question. Well, I have two questions. Do you ever suffer anxiety or stress when it feels as if a patient is not improving or experiences a relapse, and how do you handle those emotions?
I think for me, when it comes to speaking with patients, especially if it's a patient that I've seen for a while, I wouldn't necessarily consider it to be a relapse per se, unless it's something where they have like a substance abuse issue and they're talking about something like that. If it's something where it's like they suffer from a depression, anxiety, things of that nature, and they have a moment where maybe they fall back a little bit, I wouldn't consider it to be a relapse at all, just because that's them going through life.
So you think once you start, because again, I think everybody really has had some type of anxiety attack of some sort, but you think it's something that we are going to continually always deal with.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of managing it and not allowing it to control you.
And acknowledging the fact that things only happen for so long. The bad, the good, and the unknown, you know what I mean? And it's a matter of trusting the fact that even though this is a rough time and you may be struggling through it, it's not going to be like that forever.
This too shall pass.
Absolutely.
That was the word that I needed to hear on tonight. Ashley, I want to thank you so much. That hour has gone by. You didn't even realize
I did it. Look at us.
Did you?
We did it.
Why don't you tell our audience, for anyone that wants to connect with you, how do they go about connecting with you?
Okay. So you can reach me through my work mobile number. You can call or text that number. If you don't feel comfortable reaching out so directly, you can reach out via email, ashley@sohhaw.com. You can follow me on my social media pages that I have on Facebook or Instagram, just to kind of see and ask initial questions. And besides that, what else do I have?
So your work number is on your website.
It is. And will it display on this? Will it show the number and everything? I'll take 214-551-1756. And then the general website where you can go and kind of learn a little bit more in depth about what I do is www.sohhaw.com. Seeds of Healing, Health and Wellness.
All right. Thank you, Ashley, so much for joining us and giving us those tips on how to overcome anxiety. I want to remind everybody, before we get into all the good stuff, I want to remind you to, if you have not gone and downloaded Next Level magazine, go and download the current the app and get Next Level magazine. It is filled with additional tips and techniques to help you move forward in life. We are here constantly providing you all sorts of avenues, information to help you grow. I also want to encourage you to go and subscribe to our YouTube. We release a new episode every Wednesday. You can follow us on YouTube at nexlevel.org. We are doing amazing things. I'm so excited, and I want to encourage you. I want to talk to you about as we get ready to wrap up. And Ashley is going to join us. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and Next Level is going pink. And I want to invite you, all of our listeners, I want to invite you to join us on September 30th. We will be at the More Than Pink Walk in Fort Worth at 8 a.m. I know it's early, and you may even have an anxiety attack because it's early. But if you come walk, that's going to help you with your anxiety.
There you go.
And so we are joining the fight to help bring awareness to breast cancer. In the month of October, I want to encourage you to not miss not one single episode, because we have something special for you. We are going to have a different person every week. We are going to be talking to breast cancer survivors. We have representatives from the Susan G. Komen Foundation who are going to be joining us. The National Breast Cancer Association going to be joining us. Women are going to be coming and joining with us to share their stories. These magnificent women who have fought this terrible disease and that are just warriors, and they're going to share what they've learned. They're going to share some of their techniques, some of their stories and the things that they did to overcome. And so you do not want to miss it. I'm so excited about next month. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I want to again thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight. Next Level 5 in 1. If you have been blessed by tonight, if you received something on tonight that has inspired you, go tell 5 people. Go tell 5 people one thing about what you heard on tonight. That's how this is shared. You can tell them on Facebook. You can tell them on Instagram. You can tell them on TikTok. Just go encourage somebody and share with them all the amazing nuggets that you got tonight on how to beat anxiety, how to balance your life and overcome anxiety. Thank you so much. I love you guys. And until next week, I want you all to be blessed.